Welcome to the Community Preservation Committee meeting held at Council Hearing Room, One Government Center, Fall River. Meeting could be seen through Channel 18 Fall River, through Fall River GTV, Facebook Live or live streaming, or in case of conflict, Channel 9. It's Monday, March 13th, 2023, a little after 6. Pursuant to the open meeting laws, any person may make an audio or video recording of the public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made, whether perceived or unperceived, by those present or deemed acknowledged and permissible. We'll start off with roll call, and what I'm going to do is on Zoom, I'll call your name and you just say you're here. Chris Oliver?
Here attending remotely by Zoom.
Caroline Auburn?
Here attending remotely by Zoom.
Richard Cordone?
Here.
And then we have Sandy on Zoom. Then we'll start here.
Here.
Joanne?
Joanne Bentley.
Alexander Silva, present.
John Brandt present.
Rick Mancini, present.
And then we are missing Victor Farris, and we're missing a member from Planning Board. And we also have tonight, like I said, Sandy Dennis from Administration Assistant, and from FRGTV is Craig. We didn't have anyone sign up for citizen input. Can I have approval for the minutes of February 27th?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of the meeting.
Okay, can I have a second?
I'll second.
Alrighty. Then we'll start. Chris?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
Caroline?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
Alex Silva, yes.
John Brandt, yes?
Rick Mancini, yes.
Okay. Now we're on to deliberation of the FY '24 projects to discuss. And
No, John, I think you want the artist to present first and then go into your deliberation.
Oh, okay, I
Citizen
didn't-
input.
we don't have any citizen input. Alrighty. Yes, we're gonna have we had to change, last year's project triggered some things at the Fall River Arts Association that they want to change their application this year for they can complete last year's project. So they're gonna come up and explain to us why they have to make the changes. We have to do a little ADA compliance, which was triggered by the porch and other things, so I'll let those folks come up now. I know you changed your funding request is 253 now, and you can tell us, I know we have to put in the lift for ADA, if you want to tell us about that then.
So, thank you for having us here tonight. Just an introduction. Mike Keene, Civitex Architects.
And if it-
Ann Keene, Civitex Architects.
Ron Gagnon, House Committee Chair, Greater Fall River Art Association.
So, just an update. We have been moving forward with working on the last year's application, the work associated with it, which is the restoration of the Belmont Street facade, which is the east elevation of the Art Association. Last fall started and have made some good progress. We've met with one of the contractors that is interested in the project and talked through the scope with them. So part of our work or services was to retain a code consultant, and it was something that we had talked about with the Art Association at the very beginning in terms of looking at what potentially could be required beyond the aesthetics or the porch and the reconstruction of the porch, as well as the fire escape. So things like egress inside of the building, and also what might also be triggered by code. So we did have a chance to meet with our code consultant. By the time we got his schedule and our schedule aligned, it was just a couple of weeks ago. So one of the issues that have come up is that this project, the restoration of the porch and facade, is going to trigger the requirements for accessibility within the building. So it's been kind of a busy last couple of weeks in terms of trying to determine what the impact would be for the Art Association. Now, this goes back to necessarily permitted work, okay? So even though we've done quite a bit of work, this would be for actual construction work or work under permit, so which has not yet started yet. So the work that would be required for accessibility would be to provide an accessible route into the building on the first floor, and also once you're inside the building that you have an accessible bathroom or toilet room, singular, and also the back stairs would also have to be redone as part of the code requirement. And so what we have is a proposal currently with you that we've gone through funding and now through eligibility as part of the discussion for the restoration of 30 windows at the Art Association. So what we're proposing is to sort of dial that scope back, the window restoration scope back, and reduce the number of windows from 30 to 12, and instead focus on the accessibility improvements that would be required or mandated with this first project once it goes forward. And so that would be to provide the accessible route to the building, and it would be to provide an accessible toilet room on the first floor. And they can make accommodations for an accessible classroom on the first floor, so there wouldn't be any funds that we'd be looking for or requesting of the CPC for that classroom space. It would just be for what we're proposing is a lift, a vertical lift to get up to the first floor, and the bathroom, and reworking the back egress stairs. So those three points, as well as the 12 windows. And those 12 windows are the most in need of restoration. Those are the third floor dormer windows that we've been looking at. So there's flashing that's come off of that, so we're concerned about that. So I've never made a request this sort of late in the application process, so usually we have a game plan. But this is a first for us to be doing this. But again, it's going to be required once that first project goes forward under permit. So.
Now, I see you have the lift going in, so that's gonna be around, putting the lift in and everything, you're looking at 82,000. Then the bathrooms are around 35, and then the rest would be for the windows. on the
Right.
floor.
So we had a couple of days to scramble to get a proposal, 2 days, literally. So we did get a proposal from Garaventa, which is a well-known manufacturer of vertical lifts. They did give us a number for that. And the other numbers are numbers that we've obtained from similar projects that are currently under contract with other clients. So we feel, good about those numbers. I think they're accurate numbers for the plumbing and so forth.
Okay. I'll open it up to the board for questioning. Chris, we'll start with you. Any questions?
Just as far as the lift changing the historic look of the outside of the building, how much is it going to actually affect that?
So,
I mean, I saw a basic picture, but it wasn't a drawing of what it would look like. It was just an example of one that they had used. So I'm just wondering how much that's going to change it, because everything still needs to be done to Secretary of Interior standards.
right, so we're still trying to finalize the location, Kristen. But one of the proposed locations, we talked about the back we've talked about the front, but one of the locations right now, if it is in the front of the building, would be, say, to the left side of it, which would be the south side, right next to the entry door. And so we pulled together a couple of photos of lifts, right, so right there, I don't know if you can see,
Yeah, it's kind
if you're connected on your end.
Screen.
No.
Are you
But I
able to
mean,
see-
we saw a picture, we received pictures of
Yeah.
what, there were two of them, so.
Yeah.
I
So-
know what it looks like.
It would be immediately to the left of that main door is one potential location. So we would have to look at reworking that, that railing, and doing something as far as some sort of enclosure around that lift. And certainly, we would come back to your board, the Historical Commission, and review what we're proposing before we even move forward with it. So you'd have a chance to at least look at it. And
Did you look at the back of the building and that back set of,
that, so that could be one potential location, yeah,
I
and so
noticed you're rebuilding that.
we're gonna have to, yep, so that, go ahead.
I was just gonna, if you put the lift back there, it is pretty well out of sight. And if you're gonna rebuild the porch to meet the correct step and, thread standards and things, you could then build around for the new lift. And there's adequate room there, particularly if you back the stairs up and behind the building a
Right,
bit.
right.
So that might warrant a look. What that would do is it would eliminate the issue of
Right.
the front of the building, the rail, and you would not, if you put the lift here, you're going to have to build up or put a ramp in
Right.
to get into the front door. If you use the back, you could
Yeah.
build that up to
Yeah,
the entrance level, which would eliminate a ramp.
right.
So maybe, and you might save some money that way too.
Yeah, I think honestly, what we're gonna have to look at, we never go in with one, option. We look at multiple options, multiple ways to sort of skin the cat. So certainly, the back is an option that we should be looking at too. So we haven't ruled that out or settled on one just yet. What we did do is we went back and looked at this front a little bit, and what we were thinking about doing is, if it were there, right, is that what we could do is build up a platform so it's at the same level as the threshold. So the rise of that lift would then meet that platform. So it's almost like having, an extension of the porch. It'd be one step, but it's maybe, 5 or 6 feet out. So it has to be designed, it's gotta be thought through, the back is gotta be looked at, because that's part of the egress component too. So maybe there's an opportunity there to have it
One of
all.
the nice things about the front is that they have the wider door there, and it's kind of a straight shot in, where we may have to maneuver a little bit more the openings in the back.
So we haven't
That
ruled-
door in the back is very narrow as it is. I
Yeah.
don't think that
Yeah.
would need any ADA.
Right,
requirements
so-
As it is.
Right,
Alone for
right.
handicaps.
Right, so-
It's gotta get changed. without-
Yeah.
I just want to state, we were on Zoom with Kristen, so she still has, I don't want to take her time away, so, let's
Oh,
try.
no, that's okay. I mean, discussion
Well, I
about
don't
it
wanna,
is fine, and it's
space you guys
actually
out when you're
answering
on
some of
Zoom,
my.
so, because you're not here, so, you still had the floor for questioning, so, was there anything else, or?
Yeah, no, I mean, that was answering some of my questions. So my concern was just putting it in the front and how much it would change it. And then I had seen that in order to do it that way, it would have to level off the porch to meet the threshold at the front door. And, and it would change the look of that step as well. So I think that was my concern with that. And then would it have been possible to put it in the back, and then how much of a difference it would be? And I mean, especially as far as I know, you have estimates for prices, but is that something that could drastically change depending on where you decided to put the lift?
Well, the thing is, at this point in time, we need to have some design time to look through the options. So, I mean, we're giving a best guess right now as to what costs and such would be for those, but we do need to evaluate
Yeah,
different
and we want to
options.
present it to the Historical Commission too, because this is not the same application, so. There's a couple of examples we just pulled up of a similar, couple of Garaventa lifts, type lifts, in historic structures, so, you know, there are ways to create it so it blends in, you know, we just have to come up with a design for it, so. But it's achievable. I think the one good thing about all of this is that, one, you know, we're catching this in time before the permanent work actually started, which is great. But also, that this is a benefit to the public. I mean, the public, you know, comes into the building and, you know, visits the shows and so forth. So, this is a way for, you know, everybody, you know, inclusive, to everybody to access the building.
I know when I talked to the building department inspector, I think even on a historic building, when they start redoing it, if they can make it handicap accessible, they should be doing that if they can. And in this instance, we can do it, but I think we want to stay away from the front porch as much because that is, you know, it's the main focus. And the side entrance there, I think, would be the ideal spot for it.
Right.
Unless
Right.
back, but we don't want to put it where it's,
Right.
we're making it obsolete for ADA. I mean,
Right.
you know,
Right.
'cause, you know, but, okay. So anything else, Chris?
No, that's it. I yield. Thank you.
Okay. Did you want to?
Yeah, unless you're going in order.
Bill's going out. Richard, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hey guys, how you guys doing? So just a couple of questions. So, so with this change, what prompted the change? I guess that's my first question. From the original scope that was submitted.
What's the question?
What prompted the change?
What prompted the change in the application, Richard? Is
Yeah,
that-
from its original scope of work.
Yeah, the code consultant that we have on contract for the project visited the site. It's part of what we had in there as our services to review the scope of work.
That's part of the porch project.
The porch project. And so what he came back with, he said, the cost of the renovation work relative to the assessed value of the building is going to trigger the requirements for accessibility.
Gotcha. And then another follow-up question. So the remaining 18 windows are you guys planning to submit that, let's say, next year, next funding year, or? So originally it was 30 windows, now it got dropped to 12, so that means there's 18 windows that are not gonna be replaced.
We reduced the quantity of windows,
Correct.
yeah.
Right, so what I'm saying is, so for next year, is the intent to do the remaining windows, apply for funding for next year, next fiscal year?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
It definitely would be. I mean, we're trying to keep this so it's relatively close to what the original, you know, funding request was. It was slightly below what that original request was, but we'd love to do the remaining windows.
But it's because of triggering the ADA that we need to take that component first before we do the remainder of the windows.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, you can't do it with that.
yeah, right.
You can't do it, I know that.
Yeah, we can't get
All
there
right.
until we do the accessibility upgrades. So-
Right, so was it almost, so with this change, was it almost a $20,000 increase? We just got the paperwork today.
I think it was a little less.
Yeah, we reduced it.
It was 30,000.
Oh, reduced?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, it's gone down, so
okay.
I think it was.
if you wanted to add a few more windows, we'd be open to that. We wouldn't argue.
That's all I got, thank
Just a
you.
thought.
Thanks, Richard. Caroline, anything?
Not at this time, no.
All right. Joanne?
Not really, no. I just think that it makes sense to me that, again, being new, you know, some of the things I'm still trying to get figured out
Yeah.
here, so it would make sense to me that you have some kind of study or something done first, so you know what you're getting yourself into, because the ADA will get triggered based on the dollar amount that you spend. So it makes sense that, knowing that you triggered that amount, you drop back and get that, because that's not gonna go away, those ADA requirements aren't gonna go away.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that they did that first and had the code consultant take a look at it to see what it triggers.
No. We've always been on the studies, not, but in the future, we might look at historic properties that do need extensive. We might require something like that. We have on some properties, but mainly we sometimes, and like this, we found out that we have some problems, so.
I think that's a good point. I think, you know, going forward where you have projects where you're thinking about or considering, you know, multi-year, multi-phase
Right.
projects, where it makes sense to first do that study, that evaluation.
I think you would want to have a master plan and chip
Yeah.
away at it. Perhaps it's a
Right.
5-year and you know, you want to do something each year, but
Right.
Yeah.
that makes sense to me. So I really don't, I was more of a comment than a question,
Yeah,
that's all.
we've done it on some in the past, but like I said, sometimes we don't because of the extra expense, but we might change our practice on that in the future since, you know, some things will come up like this, so we better know beforehand than this, but, yeah.
It's just, I've seen, you think you're doing something great, you're gonna replace these windows, and replacing 30 windows would be great, but then there's a domino effect, and
Yeah.
it does trigger something, and it's like, oh, no.
Yeah.
You know, and it's more than just the entrance, it's the restroom, it's a bunch of stuff, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's so many other things that could potentially get triggered with some of these projects, and it may not be only accessibility. It depends on what the building is, what the use is, the function of it, you know, the age, the square footage, so many variables to it, but you could trigger life safety requirements, right, sprinkler requirements. You know, in some of these older buildings, it's, you know, the exit signs and things like that, which are critical components too. And just as a comment, just because this got triggered for this project does not universally mean that the same would apply to some of your other projects. It depends on multiple variables. So it just, here, it has to do with cost. You have a building that is open to the public, so accessibility will be required.
I mean, in 11 years of funding, we've did some tweaking to make accommodations, but nothing where we had like this where it came back.
Right,
But- So
right.
it does happen, and we'll learn from that, and we'll look at, you know, some projects a little different.
Right,
Right.
yeah.
I'm all set.
Alex?
Hi, yeah, I do have some questions. Let me start off by saying I'm sympathetic to your plight. It's an unfortunate situation with how things were lining up. I do want to say that it would be important for something like this to kind of go through the whole process, because as far as I understand it, accessibility improvements and projects like that are not eligible for historic preservation grants. So as far as I see it, the change in scope wouldn't even be covered under a CPC grant. I don't even think for any category, but maybe community housing. In fact, I asked an applicant in this process this year to take out some accessibility upgrades and improvements from their scope because it wouldn't actually qualify. So I don't really see how it would be fair to the process and the other applicant to kind of overlook that, even if we could, because I don't think these accessibility improvements would qualify for the grant, unfortunately. The window work that you're keeping in, I think, still would count. So, I mean, it would be up to the board's discretion on how to proceed, and I'll save my comments for that at deliberations. But my understanding of it is these accessibility improvements wouldn't qualify for the grant, and it would have been kind of said at the eligibility phase kind of going forward. So I think it's unfortunately you kind of had to rush to put this application together when it might not meet the eligibility requirements.
Okay.
Good point. I was also thinking about that, is does the lavatory or bathroom fit under this grant also? It might not. That's another thing that we have to look into, because that might not be available for funding.
Well, I can call Stuart and we'll find out if it's the board's decision or if it's not, or how they've done it in the past in other areas. So,
I think they're worthwhile projects.
Right,
they're
and there's a
necessary projects.
definite public
Yeah,
benefit to it, so.
it's a double-edged coin here. I yield.
Okay. All right, no further questions? All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the hard work you did. That was a lot.
Just a couple of days.
I had to go home and sleep.
Yeah.
All right. Now, as we move into deliberation, you're not gonna be scoring tonight, but it's a good night to like see where you wanna put your ones, twos, and threes. Talk about, the projects, what we might be funding if we were gonna do windows or this or that. Not down to the exact, because we'll do that when we do the voting, but just to get a sense as a whole committee where we're heading. So we don't want to be for, but if you're against something on a project, bring up what's not good, but we don't want to say for or against. It's just my opinion, but we do have some of our bond things that are going to pop in automatically. Is the Mount Hope is 60,000, the bio reserve is 78,000. The bond we just took for the fire and the museum is 2021, $291.88. That comes to 359,291. Then we put in administration, which is 45,000. That brings us to 404,291. It's estimated we're going to have probably 1.771 to spend. So we're already at 400,000. It's always good to keep some in reserve because emergencies, overruns. So the way I'm thinking it looks is like we have around $1 million to fund this year. That's just looking off the top of my head. That would give us spending 1.4 and leaving 360 in reserves. As a committee, we'll do that during voting, but just for you have a layout of how it's looking when you start putting things together. Let's see, the first project we want to talk about is the Dr. Fisk House.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, I have a question
It's our association.
before we get started.
Did I have the wrong guy?
Art association.
Oh, that's the only thing changed? Oh, okay, I must not have updated. So the Art Association, okay. Sorry about that. The Art Association.
John,
Yeah.
John, Richard had a question.
Oh, sure, go ahead, Richard.
So thank you, Mr. Chair. So can we just get confirmation to make sure that our numbers are actually accurate as far as it's actually 1.4 that we have?
Well,
Last year, there was definitely, we had the number, then it changed again. And just give us a printout of exactly, so that way when we're
we have a printout.
scoring, just give me 1 second. So when we're scoring, we actually know exactly what we have, just to make sure, because, not to revisit last year, but it just, it takes time and effort to kind of go through these projects, review these projects and score these projects. And then, only to come to find out, it's like, hey, the numbers that we have weren't accurate. So it kind of throws it off. So if we can just make sure we get confirmation, that would be,
It's always going to change, but right now, Sandy, it was what, 1.771 and change?
608.
Yeah, I've been going back and forth with the finance department the last week or so to tweak these numbers exactly for that reason, Richard. Now, by the time you get to scoring next week, so I got another email into them. I'm waiting to hear back to them with some more accurate figures as well. So by next Monday's meeting, you'll have exactly how much you have to spend. But I think this number that they're giving us is pretty close to what you're going to have this year. But I'll stay in contact with them as the week goes on before next Monday's meeting, so you'll know.
thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Anything else, Richard?
No, that was it.
Okay, thanks.
It's also good to know that last year we had some grants refunded, which was I think, the root of the problem with the change in funds too.
Yeah, we had a lot of
And I
return
don't-
money
I don't
that
think
came
we're-
back in.
And I don't think we're expecting that this year too.
No, okay, so it's, first one up is the Fall River Arts Association. We'll start with deliberation on that. Chris, do you have any thing you want to add?
Nothing really. It was just that Alex really did raise a good point as to what, what we would be able to fund as far as that, because under historic preservation, I don't see how it would be covered. I don't know. I mean, in my head, I've been trying to think of a way where that would fit as far as how we could fund it, and I think that's definitely going to be a Stuart question, because I really can't figure out how that would fit in, because you're really not, it's not historic preservation because you're not making anything accurate. And I thought maybe recreation, only because you're allowing full public access to a building for sort of, I guess, recreational reasons, but it's not really creating recreation. So I don't know. I'm not sure how that how we go about that. So I think this is one that we really.
Yeah.
It's a great project. It really truly is. But it's one that we have to figure out if and how we can fund it in the first place.
It's kind of like when I talked to Stuart last year about the Central Fire Station, and I said, we're spending this amount of money for windows, and I said, every year they're gonna put air conditioners in, and through the years, windows will be back to nothing again. They wanted to put in split minis, and he says, as long as it's preserving a historic building, we have our discretion. So I'll ask him if this is part of our discretion. I mean, it's an historic building, but if it's not the art association and it can't be open to the public, is to do in the funding. I mean, so we'll have to look at that and see how that falls into respect there. I mean,
Right.
without being able to provide the ADA, I mean, are they able to open? So it really wouldn't be the art association. So
Right.
we have to kind of see where the guidelines can lead us in that. And I'll check on that. And,
John, I just want to make one quick point, just under recreation too. I believe any recreation funding has to be outdoors. It can't be anything inside.
Yeah,
I think it has to be active, yeah.
So just keep that in mind too for recreation.
yeah. Okay. Is any other questions, Chris?
No, not right now.
Okay.
Thanks.
Richard, anything?
Yeah, just a couple of things. One is, I guess for the public to know who was Stuart that you guys are talking about, so that way, they're not sitting here trying to figure out who that is. And the other, I mean, I feel that now like this project is just being rushed just to get it funded this year. I think there's still some missing pieces to it, so, and then obviously to Alex's point, so I'm not sure where that's gonna fall. That's my only concern, and that's all I have.
Well, Stuart Sagamore is, he's like the,
Community Preservation Coalition.
Yeah.
He's like our liaison
CEO,
through that
he's like,
nonprofit
answers all of
group.
our questions and does training. And so when we ever have a problem, we always call him and talk it over and see if it does fall within our guidelines. And a lot of times he'll say it's within what you think falls in our guideline. I know this is, we think we're kind of rushing it. We have had nothing major as this in the past. We have had projects where we tweaked a little to include something because they had to do this to do last year's project. This is a little bigger scope. We're going into, we're doing bathrooms, a chairlift, and, that's what, $110,000. So,
No, right, I understand. So it gets tricky. So when you're going into when you're doing any kind of construction in any older buildings, you have a lot of these buildings that are out of code. And I think that's where the issue. I'm not saying every project that the committee does is the case, but I think in this case, that's what prompted this.
Yeah.
So again, that's the only reason why I'm saying I'm not saying it's going 100 miles an hour. That's not what I'm saying. But I think we're really trying. For me, I don't know about any other member, but for me, it's going a little bit faster so we can kind of get it on there. I think there's definitely some questions that need to be answered. But I mean, I know this is something that doesn't happen all the time, but at the same time, folks need to do their due diligence because, again, a lot of these buildings are just old and there's certain requirements by code that you have to do in order to get, certain type of work done. So that's all I'm saying.
Okay. Well, we do have 2 weeks before we vote, so if you have any questions, give these folks a call, any project.
Can I,
Chris, go ahead, yeah.
sorry, can I just say one thing about that? And
Hold on 1 second, Kristen, I apologize. So John, you're right. I mean, honestly, if I have questions, I prefer to do it in a public forum because what I'm thinking, I will also like for my other board members to hear as well, in case that might prompt another question and say, hey, you know what, a follow-up question to that. So yes, it's great to give them a call, but at the same time, I think it's in our best interest if we do it publicly, so that way the public's involved and everyone else is involved and everyone's kind of, heard what the question is. So as an example, as you guys know, I'm in public service. When we do any kind of construction or any type of bids, if there's a question, we answer it via addendum. That way, everyone that's on record of having pulling that solicitation will get a copy of that question and the answer to it. So everyone's it's fair competition. And that's the only reason why I say I prefer to do it in a public forum than just calling someone and just having I don't want to say a private conversation, but just a conversation between us and that kind of giving the respect to the other board members of the questions that I have asked. So that way, if they have, additional questions to that, they can also ask as well. So, but with that, I yield.
I always agree, it's good to keep with the public so they can hear it too, so, yeah, Chris, go ahead.
no, I like what he just said about that. I think that's good. Because he's right, it does prompt questions from other people. I know sometimes when I'm listening, it makes me think, oh, I didn't even think of that. And then there's more questions that follow. So he does raise a good point. My only thing to that, and I know where Richard, you had said that it seemed a little rushed, and I can completely understand that. I think the whole problem is that they can't even start last year's project until they address this, because they're trying to do, they have to deal with grouting, taking out the granite, fixing all the granite and the foundation on the porch and that was kind of something that was an urgent need to be done. So the longer they have to wait on that, the more chance that porch is going to collapse, because that porch is in really bad shape. And so I think that's probably the reason why they're doing it this way, where it seems like it's rushed. And in actuality it is, but there's a valid reason in that they can't even do the work that's really urgently needed on the porch until this issue gets settled. So, but even then, we still have to find out whether or not we can even fund it. So it's kind of a sticky situation. So that's it. I yield.
Okay. Caroline?
I was just going to say that I can see where the possibility of us funding the lift on the exterior and redoing that would make sense. Where I'm more concerned that we definitely wouldn't be able to fund would be the bathroom, mostly because it's this, it's the interior, and it's not really, especially in historic preservation, it's not, going to be preserving. It's not like they're preserving an original bathroom or something like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if we could do the lift, but I'd be more shocked if the bathroom, was able to get through. But even still, and there's definitely, like other board members have said, there's definitely some questions that I have about it. sort of, thinking about of whether or not we can actually do it.
Okay, good point. I mean, we don't have to fund any project as a whole. We could pick certain things, the lift, the windows, boom, and leave, something out. That's our purview on that, how we wish to grant the funding. So, good point. Joanne, anything?
No, not really. I pulled up the Mass AAB and I'm just looking at what triggers what, and I'm trying to see if there's maybe Stuart, whom I don't know, who we could ask his opinion on something here. Because I'm everything's open to interpretation, right? So I'm just
Right.
trying to make sure I understand based on the dollar amount, things are gonna get triggered, right? So the Mass AAB says, if the work being performed amounts to less than 30% of the full and fair cash value of the building, and the work costs more than $100,000, then only the work being performed is required to comply with 521, which is the Mass Handicap Code. Or if the work costs more than $100,000, then the work being performed is required to comply with 521 CMR. In addition, an accessible public entrance, toilet room, telephone, drinking fountain, which everybody's getting away from. But so there are a couple of exceptions, and I don't know if any of these would fit. It says whether performed alone or in combination with each other, the following types of alterations are not subject unless the cost of the work exceeds $500,000, or unless the work being performed is on an entrance or a toilet. So I guess my question is, and I don't know if it's splitting hairs, we're trying to make the building handicap accessible. The entrance as it is, the door is wide enough, you're not modifying that, you're just modifying how you get to it.
Right.
So I need somebody above my pay grade to just interpret what that means.
Well, to go in the front
You know.
way, you can't because you got the stairway. And
Mhm.
you can't put a ramp or a runway because you just don't have the room.
Right.
So that's why the lift was the best way to go for that.
And I get that, but so is the lift is altering the entrance? It's altering how you get to the entrance. And I'm just playing devil's advocate right now on how, because I think this is a very worthwhile project and I would hate to see it hit a glitch,
Yeah, okay.
That's it.
Alex?
I already said my piece about how I don't think the accessibility upgrades will qualify as eligible. I wanted to reiterate that in the past, we haven't been particularly favorable about granting additional funding when projects haven't been completed from past grants. But then again, that's not to say that this applicant hasn't tried to work on that project, so I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to something that splits out the windows since they are in such dire condition. But also at the same time, now that they've already triggered the ADA requirements, is more money and more work going to this property going to trigger anything else? I don't know if the window project makes sense right now for the owner. That would kind of be at their discretion, I guess, or our discretion when awarding it. I am in favor of preserving this building. Stuart Saginor always kind of tells us in regards to historic preservation that it can't create anything new, so that's my guideline for the lift and the bathroom. That's interior too, so I don't even think that would kind of qualify under that route. It usually has to be street or public facing facades, so you can even make the argument that putting the lift in the back, which would be desirable from a historic preservation standpoint, is not even publicly viewable. So that's another kind of hiccup with the whole thing, but I'm kind of just digressing because I don't think the lift would qualify as well as the bathroom, unfortunately. Not to say it's not a worthwhile project and it wouldn't benefit the community. It's just under the historic preservation category. I don't think it would get a favorable opinion from Stuart on that, but we can certainly ask, and I'd be happy to be proven wrong.
Rick?
No, in my comments earlier, and I'm listening in, and I tend to agree with most of the chatter here, so
Okay.
I yield.
Well, I'm actually have a meeting with Stuart tomorrow, so I'll ask him on this project if he could send an email to me so I can forward it to you folks too, to see how he stands on what CPA does in this instance. So we'll all have our, looking at his ideas, how we should go about this, you know, already. I seen you guys come back. Did you wanna, the Keens came back. If we have any last minute questions, did you guys wanna ask them anything else since they came back, or we all set?
I would be curious to know if getting a grant for the window work would be problematic for the Art Association at this point with triggering anything. I know it's kind of a different area and different type of project, but I'm not quite sure the code consultant's conversation.
I think, I'll say this, it's a struggle for a lot of nonprofits in the city to collect funding for these types of projects. And, you know, the CPC is their first, you know, avenue to sort of get these projects rolling. And we've seen that with Lafayette Durfee House and a number of others, that if it weren't for the CPC, I don't know where these nonprofits would be, quite honestly. So they are seeking other funding. Whether or not it would be, could be utilized for this, I don't know. But where they're so early on in the process, yeah.
But I think what we think about with the entrance, and we understand that you have to figure out if it fits into the category that we do, but overall, I think it's going to benefit the community because it's allowing them to have an accessible entrance that they didn't have before, which means that there are other people that may not go to the Art Association that may be able to now, whether it's an older population or somebody that has mobility limitations, to be able to have them come in. It may also they may be able to offer some different types of classes too. So I think it's going to benefit the community in the end, whether it can come under CPA or something else. I do think it is a community benefit.
And just one more thing to add, the requirements, the letter of the requirements may be for the exterior preservation only, but anyone who's set foot inside of that house, knows the historic, detail and the significance of the residence on the inside, which is just as important as the exterior. So, you're excluding a certain population in the community by not allowing them access to inside of the building, which I think needs to be considered as well. I think that, maybe the letter of the regulations state it's exterior only, but I think that's a narrow view of looking at it. And I think that should be rethought if that's the case.
Yeah.
So.
That's what I want to give Stuart, because CPA's been changing throughout we've been in it 11 years.
Right.
And in that 11 years, the way people have been spending the money has changed to adapt to the area that it's in. Right. I mean, some things you would never think would be funded, and now it is funded because they see it as being, preserving an old building that might not be for everybody, but
Right.
it is historic, and you do preserve the outside, so we'll see how that goes. And
Right. And you just think about, we've had these conversations with the board and board members, but you think about, when they hold an event, public event, an event that's open to the public, or if, someone has a gallery opening, there's very likely, over the years, have been family members, friends that have been excluded from that building because of this. And you may not know that because that person may not be coming to the board and explaining that. Mm-hmm. So, but I wouldn't doubt that that's the case, or has been the case over the years. So I just hope that the CPC would consider all of that, so.
Yeah, we'll get the information feedback and I'll share with everybody and then
Sure.
come voting time, that's up to the committee.
But with regard to the windows, are you aware of any code triggers that would occur if that work were to be?
So just as, Joanna mentioned earlier, that we look at, typically with a study, what those trigger points are. When we brought the code consultant in, it was specifically to look at egress and, the relocating that fire escape. But with the budget that we had, we said, look at everything. What could be the potential trigger points, right? Everything from sprinklers. But that's really the only one that he saw right now, that what would be triggered potentially in the future.
Well, it's a dollar amount for you, right, not what
Right.
project, so.
Right, so it
If you
has to
spend
be
hundred and fifty
dollar
in
amount.
windows, you would trigger,
Right,
is, I'm
right.
reading it right
So in the
here.
future, that's a good point. You've already satisfied, if this project goes forward with the accessibility improvements, you've satisfied the requirements for the accessibility upgrades. So there wouldn't be any other further triggers beyond, windows or whatever else they may be looking for in the future.
okay.
If I can just jump back, so I'm still reading the Mass AAV regulations here, and there are some exceptions, and one of the exceptions, it lists certain things like septic systems, this, that, but it does say roof repair or replacement, window repair, replacement, repointing, and masonry work is an exception. It's not a trigger.
Okay. All right. Well, any other further questions? We'll close the.
I just have I had one thought, and it was during this. Lafayette Durfee House,
Mhm.
did they receive funding for a lift on the back of the house from CPC? Because I'm pretty sure they did.
Yeah,
So obviously it can be done.
FY '21.
yeah.
Yeah,
FY21
I just realized that they received funding for that, so obviously it's something that,
It's the board's interpretation of, but I mean, it does, you have to comply. I mean, it's otherwise, why would you fund a historic building if you can't use it for the public? you
right.
know?
And they had the same trigger amounts because of the amount of money that the committee's given them over the years.
The amount isn't very, it's only $100,000.
Yeah, it's not a lot,
That's not
so-
a lot of money these days to get anything done.
And I think, it's 3-year period where you spend 100, then you have to wait another 3 years before you spend, I mean, so you're gonna trigger it if you start with,
Yeah, it's not a very high
yeah.
threshold.
but yeah, we have done it
So
in
it
the
sounds
past.
like we just need clarity. Can we or can we not? Because it sounds like to me, I mean, we have for some or we haven't for others, and we want to make it fair across the board. So I think that's something that we, the board or the chair needs to find out, can we or can we not? It just.
Well, like I said, we did do it for the Lafayette House. I'll contact Stuart tomorrow and ask him to type up something for us as a committee and how we're supposed to look at this, and then we can determine it how, it's our interpretation as a board. People have different opinions on it, so that's how we'll vote on it. It's accessible, we can do it, but if we don't think it's right, I guess we vote no, as an individual.
Yeah, I mean, respectfully, I mean, opinions don't matter if you can't do it. I think if we can, if we're allowed to do it, then we can do it. I think, and then based on, I mean, from there's your opinion, right? If we're allowed to do it, we can either say yes or no. But if we can't do it because whatever type of restriction, guideline, policy, regulation, then that changes the game. Board member Mr. Sylvia said that, there was a project that was denied. So it's like, how is that fair now? So do we go back to that person that we denied before and say, hey, by the way, we can cover it? Let's be fair.
I don't think we denied a lift, did we?
It's an application this year. They removed it from the scope at my request.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They removed it for that reason. So would it be, so let's say if it does go through, I'm just trying to be fair, guys.
Yeah, it wasn't, didn't include a lift.
If that's the case, then we can
No, I
revisit
mean-
with that individual and say, hey,
There was a
can,
bathroom railing and stuff.
Yeah.
And
Oh, handicap bathroom railing, yeah.
And I would-
I don't know if the bathroom will, that's why I'll get comment on that too. The lift, I'm pretty sure we can vote on because we have in the past. The bathroom, we'll get clarity on that, how we're supposed to proceed with that.
I would just say that I know since the CPC and Fall River Community Preservation Committee's inception that it's been a learning process and that mistakes have been made with past grants and applications, but that doesn't mean you just keep repeating the same mistakes
no.
if something wasn't eligible.
Absolutely.
I know that, the school administration building got a ramp as well that probably shouldn't have gotten approved. So I don't think that just because it's been done in the past would necessarily warrant its justification for the future.
Okay, I'll get
I agree
confirmation
with Board Member
from
Sylvia.
Stewart on that then. We'll call Boston tomorrow and have him give us his opinion so we can move forward. All right. Any other questions? All right, we'll move on to the Dr. Fisk House.
I'll be recusing myself because I'm on the board.
All right. The Dr. Fisk House, this has been a project we've been working on for quite a few years. Before you leave, Alex, this wraps up the outside of the building, right?
Yes.
Okay, so this would be their last actual funding for their building until they go inside, if they want anything for the museum. So they're looking to finish the east and west side facet with the windows and storm shutters. They're looking for $79,200. I've always thought this was a great project. If you've driven by it, they've done a great job. We'll start with Chris. Do you have anything to add to this?
You're on mute, Chris.
Oh, sorry. I think it's a great project, and I'm excited about the fact that it might finally help finish this project, because I think it's always great when we have something that's done and we can say, look, we helped do this. So that's all I have.
Alrighty. Richard?
No questions.
Alrighty. Caroline?
No question.
Alrighty. Joanne?
No questions.
Alrighty.
No questions really. The window cost is reasonable, and Jim Soul did say that this was going to be his last request. All of the visual from the streets will be completed. The back of the home and the rest of the building will be done by their own independent sourcing. So,
Yeah.
no, I think it's a good project.
Yeah.
Should go.
No, they do a great job over there. I mean, they'll have the backside to finish, which they don't want to come in front of us because they don't think, because the public doesn't see the backside, they don't want to use our money. So, I mean, this is a group that has worked with us through the last 3 or 4 years, so it's a good project. Next, the Academica Club. I did call Mike Dion about the plans they submitted. He had used some plans that were done in the past, and I asked if he had other drawings coming, which he does have other drawings coming, because I said there's no electrical or any of this, and he agreed, and he said there was a couple of things that they were gonna have to do before they got their funding. And I said, well, we had some questions about 2 units we didn't think was sufficient. So they did say they would go to 3 units. And on this application, the elevators are 275. I mean, everyone's looking for affordable housing. I mean, it's in my opinion, I mean, I'm for affordable housing. I don't know if it's best piece made or best waiting for a better project to come before us where we can, I mean, I don't know if you guys have looked at past projects CPA has done up in Shoveltown. I think it's in Alton, Mass. Shoveltown was where they made shovels. Factory closed down, CPC came in, made a gorgeous affordable housing. Are we gonna have that come before us? I don't know. But if we spend, sometimes I think if we spend on the little things and we chip away, we'll make a dent, but a positive impact with the taxpayers' money is what I'm looking for. And so I'll just put that out there as, you know, we did get the extra housing, so we'll start. Chris, you have any questions to add to it?
I don't have any questions. I mean, my thought on this, just because it's the conversation part of it. So they're requesting 350,000, which is an awful lot of money. And we'd be getting 2 affordable housing units.
Well, it'd be up to 3 now.
Huh?
It'd be up to 3 units now.
Oh,
But
okay, there.
3 units, but it's an elevator, so just for people to know what the money is gonna be going for.
Right.
It's housing.
I don't know, and I mean, I think because they originally had said the application was for historic preservation and for community housing, but when I asked about the letter from the historical commission, they said, well, we'll just go for housing. I don't know, I just have some reservations here. It's a lot of money for a small amount of apartments, of affordable housing units. And unless they were also going to put a preservation restriction on it through us, I understand that Mr. Dion said that he was willing to do that, but unless it came from us, I wouldn't do it, because I know we had already funded this building before and the preservation restriction was not put on it for whatever reason, because it was a different owner. There's just a lot of questions about this for me. I don't feel fully comfortable with this one. So maybe somebody else has other thoughts that might put my mind a little more at ease, or just has other questions that'll be raised. But I'm kind of iffy on this one.
Yeah, I did forget to add that when I'm talking to Mike Dion from CDA, that I said one of our things was that the historic preservation, we did not get one. If we did come in on this project, we would want to have a historic preservation restriction, because he's going to have the housing restriction. And he agreed to that, because he was going to put the historic on, but I think as a committee, we would feel more comfortable having that on our end. So they would agree to that, too. So, but,
I just feel like it's a lot of money.
no, I understand your point there, yeah.
Because I mean, we had another one come before us, the Notre Dame, and we didn't fund them for nearly this much money for their elevator, and I believe there were just as many units that they were gonna get. And I mean, there's been so many issues with this from the get-go, even from the previous applicant and that, so, I don't know, that's just, I'll yield, and I'm curious what everybody else feels.
I agree. There's gotta be a cost factor in 350 into 3 units. Is it worth it for taxpayers and stuff? Richard, any questions?
Yeah, so quite a few things. So I always get concerned when folks are asking for housing money to you know, it just, I always get a little leery. I mean, I don't want the public to think that, you know, folks can just buy an investment property, come to the CPC, and then request funding, and then say, hey, we might just do 2 affordable housing. Because some of the things that go through my head as a human being, it's like, okay, well, what kind of lottery pool are they going to have? Who are they going to have living there? Like, who's going to police that? You know, I mean, I wasn't here prior to the first project initiated, but we missed the deed restriction on that too. It's just a lot of things going on in my mind that I don't feel like the funding for the CPC will be good for this project. You know, there's just a lot of red flags. But you know, with that, I yield. I might, you know, I have some other reserved comments, but I'll wait to hear from the rest of the committee to see what their thoughts are.
I mean, that is a good point on, I think, I'm not quite sure the exact amount, but we have a couple 100,000 reserved for housing. If we don't use housing money, we have to put a percentage aside every year. So sometimes people look and saying, well, they don't spend any money on housing. But the reason we don't spend any money on housing is because the projects aren't there for us, I think. And if we do open it up to everybody coming in on like Odd Street, wanting to do their tenement house, you know, it's just, where do you draw the line? You know,
Well, right. I mean, it's easy to. I mean, so for me, I mean, it's very easy to explain to the public. If someone were to raise, well, they're not really spending money on housing. To your point, I mean, it's, you know, we can present the projects that were presented to us, and the reason why the committee, as a whole, whether it was a nay or a yay. I mean, it's very simple.
Yeah.
You know, you know, we have to do our due diligence. I mean, these are taxpayers' dollars. I mean, you know.
Yeah.
How many folks out there don't have an investment property that they would love to fix up? I mean, those are the things that I'm sure the you know, the citizens of Fall River probably thinking like, what is it that they're basing it on? You know, 3 apartments for how much money? I mean, for windows, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
You know, and then again, it boils down to, you know, what kind of lottery pool is it going to be? You know, who's going to be in these units? Who gets to pick?
Yeah.
Or is it random, like, hey, does the owner say, okay, I'm going to pick 3 people? Or is it like, I know like in certain cities or towns, they've done different types of pools and stuff. Is like, would it be something like that? Again, I'm new to this process as far as housing, but these are just kind of some of the questions that I ask, because I like to make everything to be fair.
Yeah.
You know, that's all.
That's why I figured teaming up with CDA this year was a good move, whether we approve the project or not. It sets a presence of how we're gonna do this in the future. You know, when people come before us, you know, they have to be vetted, and
Right, because the other thing will be, I'm like, hey, we'll just give him the money for just the 3 apartments that he wants to do for affordable housing.
yeah,
The rest, you know, they can do on their end, you know.
yeah. Alrighty, any further? Okay.
I yield for now.
Thank you. Caroline?
Not so much question, more, you know, I certainly feel the same way about this project. The sticker price is a little high. You know, especially when they said, was it 11 units in total and 3 of
12.
them will be affordable?
12 in total.
Okay. I mean, I know they can't have, you know, all of them affordable housing, but for me, I just feel like 350,000, you know, for windows and 3 apartments is kind of a lot. And I know the elevators in there as well, and elevators are wildly expensive, but it still doesn't fully add up to me. So I think, you know, I'm a little hesitant, but I'll wait and see, you know, what else there is.
All right. Joanne, any questions? Comments?
Yeah, I do have a few comments. So, like, as the rep for the housing authority, of course, I want to be, you know, very proactive. However, I don't want to be foolishly proactive and be an advocate on something that I do have some comments and questions and concerns about. And $350,000 is a lot. If it's 3 units that we end up with, I think that is a lot. My concerns really are more with the drawings from what I'm seeing here. And they raise a lot of red flags to me, and I know that you mentioned, like, this is not the set. However, this set that I'm looking at does say permit set, which makes me think this was submitted to get a permit. So my concerns that I see, there's one set of drawings here for an elevator, that are from 2019, and it says progress set draft, written right on it, and these were, done by Civitex in 2019. This, where the elevator is shown on these plans, is not where it is in this other set of plans. It's in a complete different location within the building. So the other thing is you'd not be able to use these drawings. That's, unless Civitex has agreed and signed off and done the drawings, these drawings would not be, you can't use someone else's drawings. The other question I have on the set, that does say for permit, and this just, like, I went through all the drawings, that's what I do. It says original drawings done by Vitrone Architecture, which makes me think these drawings were not done by Vitrone. There's another title block on here that says Signature Solutions, Madison Lopes Residential Design Services. I'm just, for reasons, I'm very concerned with these drawings that I see. Really, who are they done by? Who are these drawings done by? Who are they need to be stamped, signed, with a licensed architect, engineer, and I don't see that. And I'm concerned that, while I wasn't here, I know there's a past history with this building, that it had come before the board before. I'm concerned that I'm seeing drawings that they might not have permission to use,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
No, I think they just used what they had on hand and put the presentation in. I know they have drawings coming, but it does add to,
Well, I
who
think
knows what the
it's one
cost
more.
actually is,
Yeah,
you know.
so, that just raises a big red flag for me when I see something like that. I wouldn't want somebody to have done that to me.
Good point, yeah. Alex?
Yeah, quite a few things. For one, going off of Joanne's comments, not having their drawings ready for us to review is problematic from the get-go, I think. I heard a couple times windows for historic preservation. Windows aren't part of this project. It's just was, I think, originally intended in the eligibility application, then it dropped off. So there wouldn't even be the windows to the benefit of the public. Generally, that's how you could kind of try and spin it. I have overall concerns with how much money the Community Preservation Committee gives per housing unit. I don't think we really have any guidelines or preferences on, say, $100,000 per unit, or in this case, $175,000 per unit, but now there's three. To be clear, I think the non-starter almost is that the deed restriction for historic preservation isn't already on this. I think it's hard to justify that the grant they received in fiscal 17, the $85,000 that they already, not this owner, the previous owner, already got, it didn't get that deed restriction. So basically it was a free roof for the Academica. So I have problems with giving more money to this building, even though it is a different owner, and I won't hold past transgressions of previous owners or anything to them. But I do think trying to convince the community to give more money to a building that already had money, that doesn't have the protection on that they paid for, is a hard sell. And I think any project we approve should be an easy sell. We shouldn't really have to convince the public. I think it should be pretty easy to convince the public for what we approve. I did ask Stuart Saginor, the Community Preservation Coalition liaison for us, if there was any guidance on how much funding you could give per unit. So I sent the application over for the elevator. He did note that there was an extremely lack of detail in the application, which there was. It would almost be a non-starter,
Yeah.
non-eligible, just based on the lack of information that was included, not to mention the drawings that were wrongfully included. The answer he gave, so even before that, there was a newsletter that showed Brewster Community Housing Community Preservation Project that received $550,000, and they created over 30 units of housing. So I mean, if we as a community kind of want to go for a benchmark on how much funds and what kind of project we want to see that will actually make a difference in Fall River, maybe 30 units would be more than two. The 2 units that they started with were going to already be deed restricted affordable units from the Community Development Agency. So they were originally asking for $350,000 for a deed restriction that we didn't even need to give them because they're going to already have it on place. So it's another hard sell to the community that they'd be getting something for their money because they would already be getting this deed restriction for their money, which kind of lends to creating another third unit. So we can kind of talk about how many percentages and, 10% affordable per project or whatever. You could kind of take whatever opinion you want on it, but we don't even have to do that, I don't think. What Stuart said about the amount of money per housing unit and the whole elevator thing, I'll just kind of read some of it. He said, the elevator can't serve both the market rate and affordable units. It has to be spent on the affordable units. So we would have to know that the elevator was solely servicing the affordable units, which I don't think we do now. And he says the amount of funds provided should equal the value of the restriction that the city will receive, the affordable deed restriction. The normal way to do this is to calculate the market rate value of the unit and then also calculate the amount an affordable unit can be sold for. The difference between those two numbers is the amount you can typically invest in the project. So going forward, maybe after this year, when we kind of look at the application going next year, I think we should maybe kind of talk about community housing funds and how much we would kind of want to set aside for future projects or anything down the line. So in short, I'm not feeling good about this project. I don't think it's ready. I don't think the value for the community would be there for the grant request with what they would be giving at this time.
Past practice, we've put one elevator in 4 units, and I think the grant was for 280. So he's more than that, and we're only getting 2, maybe 3. So yeah, it is a little, not one of my, I don't want to say my favorites, but it's, that's challenging. So yeah. Rick?
On the tail end here, okay.
Sorry.
I have not noticed a letter from the Historic Commission in this packet. And I believe that's automatic. It has to be in this packet, otherwise we shouldn't consider this package. The other is that this elevator is going to be used by all of the housing units and the function room. So now we're helping a business, that this is going to be an elevator installed and being used also for the function room up on the second level. And the other thing that we didn't get an answer from, we tried, in fact, I think it was Alex, but this owner, is he going to own the restaurant? Or is he the owner of the building and he's going to lease out all of the function rooms and the restaurant portion?
That I don't know if I don't think he's gonna own it. I think he's leasing everything.
Right, so he's just the building owner.
Right.
Putting a building together. And I also take exception to the high cost of the elevator installation for the service that it's going to be given. So I yield, those are my questions when you're on the tail end. I only have a few questions.
No. Like I say, I don't want it to, if people are watching, I don't want to think that we're negative against community housing, but we do look at every aspect and think, is it worth putting 3 units for 350 or 2 units for 350 or 275? So if we come across like we're not for it, we haven't voted yet, so, but we just like to, for you guys out there to know how we're thinking and how we're spending your money, so it doesn't come a shock to you, or if we did happen to vote no, why we voted no or voted yes.
Mr. Chairman, that was my reason for asking that other question about ownership.
Yeah.
If we're putting an elevator in and a good portion of that usage is going to be to operate a restaurant and a function room, what are we doing? Are we supporting an operator or an owner of a restaurant? Are we supporting his business? we're dealing with taxpayer money, and
Oh, yeah.
I know that you're a big advocate of making sure it's spent correctly, and that was the reason for that.
Yeah,
second
no, I mean,
question.
is it the best way to spend $350,000? We have to decide, and, you know, it's not an easy decision, but we will make it, you know? Any other further questions? We'll move on to the St. John Baptist Ukrainian Catholic Church.
I did want to say, oh, sorry, Rick. I'm Richard.
Yeah, so it's, how do I say it? To your comment that you said to the public that, you know, we're not negative, we're doing our due diligence. And I
Right.
think having this open public forum that everyone is expressing their opinions, you know, just goes to show how much time and effort the committee board members put together to kind of review all these applicants, whether it's housing, whatever it might be. It just shows, and the public will see that we're very transparent.
Yep.
And we're doing our due diligence, that we're not just gonna just sit here and just fund every single project or just yes everything to death. We're asking all the necessary questions that we can, because again, I mean, some of us, I mean, I'm not a construction worker. I'm not going to have all the all the questions to some, you know, maybe some of the work that might be done, but maybe one of my colleagues might. So I you know, I think we're doing our part, and I think the public sees that based on this public forum. So I just wanted to say that. And with that,
Already.
I just wanted to say
go ahead.
to Rick's thing about the letter from the Historical Commission, they, I think, are technically pursuing it under community housing now, and I believe Historical Commission letters this summer are only for the historic preservation category.
And according to his application, he was going for historic preservation, and that's what he
Then-
listed his document on. So I'm just going by his
Yeah.
application.
Yep, makes sense.
Okay.
But I had brought that up at the meeting where they came before us, and I asked about that. And when I asked about the letter and they didn't have it, he said, oh, well, we'll go for community housing. And he basically just kind of nixed the whole thought of historic preservation, I guess, because they didn't get the letter. I don't really know why, but that was just another red flag to me.
Well, I mean, he's putting in an elevator, so that's really not historic preservation on our end, so he had to go the housing route. Because
Right.
historic, they didn't have an elevator, so I don't think we would have been able to put that under the preservation. Next, unless we have any other questions, comments? Okay. St. John the Baptist Ukrainian Catholic Church, doors, windows, stairs, foundation, railing, basically fixing up the outside, which does need it. I mean, it looks like a really good project in a good neighborhood. I think the stimulus of fixing up that building would be great for them, plus it's a historic building. It is a church, but we're preserving the outside for people to enjoy how that architect looked back then. They're looking for $58,000. I'll start with Chris. Any comments?
No, not at this time.
Okay, Richard?
no, just real quick to what board member Sylvia said earlier. You know, that some of these projects, well, the projects should be selling themselves, and I think this project did. And with that, I yield.
Yeah, and actually, they're in the audience too. They did, you guys put together a great presentation, so it always helps. Caroline, anything?
Not at this time.
Okay, Joanne?
No,
Alright.
no questions. Just I thought this was a good packet of information.
Okay.
Very good.
Just that I think it's a good value for the dollar. I'm happy that I'm always happy to see projects in the south end of the city come before us. I think this is going to be this would be a great project for the area. In fact, I'm actually curious to see what under the vinyl looks like if there's any future work.
Rick?
Okay, well, yes, it's, for the amount of work that's being done in today's market, the price is very, very, very affordable. This is very good price. And the design of the building, It's, you know, it's a really good project, and I like the idea of maintaining. It's a very simple building, very simple church, and unique. Well, you know, it's very funny, but I showed this to my wife, and she says, oh, we saw something similar to this in Alaska. And it was,
Byzantine Catholic Church in Alaska also, almost the same.
yes, exactly. And so, just a comment, but yes, we were there. It was very nice. So I agree. I think it's a very worthwhile project.
All right. Any other comments? We'll move on to the next one. Next one is the Tupper Rowing Club. They did change their, they were gonna put docks and lanes and marking. They did go down to 135 that they're asking for. The one nice thing about this is, people are always saying like, kids don't have enough to do. I mean, they are offering, classes rowing for, the, Fall Rivers kids. So that's a plus on their side. And, there's not a lot of these rowing clubs. There's one in, there is one in Westport, but, not as active. They almost got the Olympic training down here, which is a plus. So there is, some things on that end. The only negative that I have that we haven't got from them is a letter of support from the water department, since they have that property under their control. So that's my only thing. If, I know we have reached out asking for a letter from the water department. So I mean, granting money to a project that doesn't really, to me, have a support letter from their landlord. Basically what I'm looking for. So we'll start with Chris. Any questions?
No questions. That was my one concern too, was that we don't have a letter yet from the water department. So it's kind of hard to say, you know, I want to fund something when I don't know what really the logistics of, are they going, how long are they going to be there for? Do they have the support of the water department? And then for how long? So I'm still, I mean, I'm on the fence unless I hear differently from the water department.
Yeah.
It's a great project. I absolutely love this project, but to me, that's kind of the one sticking point is, you know, and we, in our application, we require letters from whichever board or entity they would fall under, and we don't have that. So
Yeah.
to me, it's not a complete application yet.
Okay. Richard?
Yeah, so I disagree with my colleagues. I think that if the water department is leasing a property, obviously, you know, it's for a city to lease a property to someone. I think they have to go through a lot of variables in order to get the lease. So I'm not too concerned with that. I mean, they did get a letter of support from Senator Rodericks. I'm not sure if maybe you know, what the delay is, maybe if there's some kind of explanation. But I mean, I think overall, I mean, this project will be huge here in the South Coast in Fall River. I think just the dynamics of it and just diversifying, you know, sports here in the city. I mean, think of the impact down the road. I mean, I've seen it personally. Like I said, again, I mean, I lived in Cambridge, and I worked as a lifeguard down the street from where they held all the meets. And let me tell you, you had colleges from everywhere, you know, coming down and competing. And we can say that we were doing it here first in Fall River in the South Coast, that we're doing you know, a different type of event. And, you know, and this also, like I said not last meeting, this also brings revenues. You know, you're bringing in all kinds of folks, and now they're going into the community. They're shopping around, they're staying in hotels, they're eating at restaurants. And it's another foot mark that, you know, someone in you know, California, Mississippi, Alabama could say, oh, I know Fall River. You know, it's huge. And you know, I think once it gets off the ground, I think that's what it really needs. I think it'll get going. I think it's just the amount of contributions they've received. I mean, because it's self-funded. So just them being able to just be selfly funded. And then also, I mean, where do you go and get anything for free now? Nothing's for free.
Yeah.
You know, price of eggs is how much, what, $8? You know, for them to say, hey, we're gonna do this, and we're all, the kids of, you know, Fall River will be able to attend for free. That's a return on investment, the way I look at it. So, I think it's a phenomenal project. I'm not too concerned if they get a letter from the water department or not. That's not gonna stop my thoughts on it, but with that, I yield.
Okay, I might give Paul Ferlin a call tomorrow just to see how his feeling is on it. And I mean, if they feel okay, I mean, hopefully the letter wouldn't be bad. But I just think that, you know, everyone says who would row, but I mean, who played intended till you got an intended set? I think this is an opportunity to get kids out of the house and doing something fun because it just seems interesting. I mean, if I was
So
a kid
I'll
and I
give-
could row, hey.
I'll give you an example. So look at the South Coast Plaza. There's someone made a comment like, well, you're gonna have all those shops, who's gonna go there? Well, if you build it, people will go.
Yeah.
You go to the South Shore Plaza, which I do, you know, the place is always packed,
Yeah,
packed. You know, so it's the same thing. If we build it, people will come, you know, and again, it's just another, you know, foot mark for Fall River, diversifying kind of what we do here, you know, for our kids. So some, you know, in a additional sport than just the regular traditional sports that we have here.
yeah, I agree.
Can I just, one quick thing?
Sure, go ahead.
So I completely, I agree with every single thing that Richard said. The only thing is, I think in keeping things fair, when we require letters from everybody else for certain things, and we did ask them for this letter, I think we still need to, you know, if we're keeping it fair, we need to keep it fair, and we need to get what we asked of them, and that's my only issue. I completely agree. I support the project. I think it's a great project, but when we're asking for stuff and we're not getting it, that's my one concern. If we can get it, then absolutely.
I agree. We'll reach out again tomorrow to both Paul and the city to see if we can get the letter of commitment, you know. from the
You
city.
want me to email, Paul?
Yeah, go ahead and email him, yeah. I've talked to
Danny,
him, but
can you
let's send
copy
him
me on
an
that email, please?
Huh?
Can you copy me on that email?
Absolutely.
We'll just copy the whole board then on that. That way we'll know it went out. Okay. Where did we end? Caroline, any questions?
Really no questions. I'd also like to see that letter of support, you know, just trying to figure out why they haven't sent it in yet. But otherwise, I also think it's a fantastic project. And I personally had no idea that we had such a, you know, admirable waterway for rowing. So it certainly taught me a little something about, you know, the city I grew up in. But if we get that letter of support, I'd be excited for it.
Okay. Thanks. Joanne, any comments?
Not really, just echoing everyone else, you know, looking for that letter. And are we able to ask them what, if they're leasing it, what's the terms? Like, is it a 2-year, 3-year, 5-year, 10-year? What is that lease?
I forget what he said it was.
Oh, you know that?
You do?
It's a 10-year lease. They're into the 4th year. They have 6 years remaining on
Okay.
the lease.
Thank you.
Alex?
I would just like to say that I'm a strong believer in Fall River playing up its strengths, and I think what South Watauga is a very undeveloped strength that the city could use, and I'm happy to see this project come before us. They are a new group, and I think Paul, the Cloutier, the applicant, said they were a first-time applicant, so I'm not as worried about the letter of support as Richard said. They do have a lease with the water department. That in itself is some agreement, but generally when non-property owners submit for grants, they do need a letter of permission from the property owner. Any grant award that we give could be contingent on that letter of support, I would add. I believe we can make it contingent on receiving the letter of support as well. And that's it.
Okay. Rick?
Okay, there are a few letters here that were supported by the public school system, our public, Argosy and Atlantis, also highlighting the advantages of having this and getting their students involved in it. So at least the school systems, obviously Atlantis and the public school system, are enthused about this. And I think that just the added tourism, people come down to participate, they participate for a weekend. And that means hotels, restaurants, shopping. So I think as a tourist attraction also, it's positive. In addition to the children that, you know, and young adults that are going to be involved in this program.
I mean, they just did that beach over down there, so it's just gonna add to that area where you keep putting money into it, getting people to go to the pond, you know, and enjoy what, some of the best benefits
We've
we
lost
have.
audio.
You've lost audio. Testing.
Hello?
I can hear you. I
I can
can,
hear you now, but,
Oh,
Said
I
internet.
was
yeah,
just
we can
saying,
hear you now, but we lost it for a minute.
oh, okay. I was just saying how like the Watuppa Pond has so much to offer for us. We did the Days Beach, the picnic area down there. This is just gonna be a continuance of adding to what our waterfront can be. So, Paul, if you're listening to this meeting, you got our votes, but you just try and get us that letter and then make it a little more easier to stay within our guidelines that we have followed in the past, just to keep everything even, you know, so, if no further questions, we'll move on to the next one. Next one is North Burial Ground. This one this will be finishing up, the project. It's to do the gates and masonry, restoration. They're looking for 93,000. We'll move on to questions. I think this is a decent project. We did the gatehouse, that's finished. I know I was talking to Chris and they're looking at doing different things to improve that cemetery, which I think would be greatly enhanced because I think we should respect our past, but that doesn't have anything to do with the 93. But just, we'll move on. Chris, any comments?
No, I mean, I think they did a great job on the gatehouse so far, and it would be nice just to see more work done. I know it's the gate itself, the columns on the gate are really beautiful, and I'd like to see them restored and have a gate put in. And I think there's probably going to be a lot more eyes on that area with the train coming, so it would just be nice to have that part of our city enhanced as well.
Okay. Richard, any comments?
No comments.
All right. Caroline?
No comments.
All right. Joanne?
I'm sorry, just a question. So on this form, it says they're requesting 110.
They up.
I think there's,
Yeah, 110, yeah. What, I have 93. Yes, it's 110 they're requesting.
Yeah, I think originally it was 93,000 and I think they bumped it up to 110.
Okay. All right.
Grant, right?
All right, so it'd be 110
Now last
before.
week, yeah.
Okay. Alex, did you have any?
No questions or anything like that, but I just wanted to say that they've done a great job. I like the attention they're giving this cemetery. Similar to Kristen's point about the train bringing increased access, once Route 79, that redevelopment project wraps up and that whole area becomes more walkable, it's not out of the realm of possibility to think that there could be a lot more historic tourism at that cemetery.
Yeah. It's kind of like if you go to Boston and walk the Freedom Trail and you walk by the old cemeteries. I mean, we have well-known people that are in our cemeteries that it's a great walking tour, and I mean, that's what a lot of people like. I mean, it brings people in to look at it. I mean, they're doing a great job, so yeah. Richard?
no comments. I just, other than I think it's a worthwhile project, and it's finishing up the existing. This is just
Yeah.
the tail end of a project that was started.
Okay. Next one is the Forest School ad building. This is for the back porch, the railing, patio, the porch fence. They're looking for 60,000. It is in bad shape. I do think it would improve the building as an historic building. That's what I have to add. Chris, any comments?
Nope, not at this time. Oh, actually, did we get a letter, an updated letter from the Historical Commission on this one? Because I don't remember seeing it.
I haven't gotten anything.
Not yet, no.
I haven't gotten any.
We do have one on
So
past applications. I don't know if that appeases.
Yeah, well, that's it's a different,
Okay.
application.
All right.
So Richard Mancini,
Yes.
did they reach out to the Historical Commission
No,
yet?
they have
You
not,
know?
they have not at this time. They were asked at our last CPC meeting when they attended that they had
They were.
to do that, and we have not heard from them at this point.
Okay.
On either project,
Okay.
windows
Okay.
nor
Okay.
the rail.
All right.
Okay, then, I mean, I love the project. I think it's a great project, and I know they've done some good work in there so far, but it's still an incomplete application because it says right on our application, we require it, and we ask them for it, and it's not there, so the application's not complete.
All righty.
I mean, I hate to be sticklers, but it's the fair thing to do. And if you're asking for as much money as some of these people are asking for, you as an applicant also need to do your due diligence. And, you know, fair is fair. We need to hold everybody accountable to the same standards.
Good point.
And that I yield.
Okay, Richard?
To piggyback off of Chris, I agree. Just everything obviously has to be fair across the board, and with that, I yield.
Okay. Caroline?
No comment.
Okay. I know in these letters we've asked, I mean, you could see Sandy's been sending them out for requests for quite a while. I mean, now we started in October and now we're into March, so they should have these easy things in. They might not think it's of importance, but to us, it's part of the application and should be completed. So,
Can I just say one thing,
Mhm.
John?
yeah,
I'm sorry. So under number 5, community city endorsement in B, section B, and this is in bold print, if a board or commission that the project falls under does not support or provide a letter of support for the project, it will not be considered for funding. So, I mean, it's right there in print and it's in bold print. So I mean, it's our application. We have to take that part seriously.
nope, I agree. I agree.
Okay.
Alrighty.
I just want that out so the public knows that's exactly what it says on the application, so.
Yeah. Caroline?
You've already been to me.
Oh, okay. Joanne, did I?
No, I have no further comments. I have no
Alex?
comments.
I would just say that we could also make this contingent on receiving the letter of support. Should we wanted to proceed with the grant, we could even give a date, like a deadline, whatever would kind of be the committee's preference. And that's all I have to say. I went by there recently, and this particular area definitely does need some attention. But the letter is easier to get than some other things in the application, so it's up to the committee, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you know, sometimes people think we're a piggy bank and we don't really, it's a requirement. We should stick to our guns. If they don't have it in, we don't fund the project because application was incomplete. So we'll reach out again, but I think if they don't have it in by the 27th, the day of voting, that it would be a non-complete application, in my point of view. Let's see, Richard?
Yeah, well, there is a commission meeting, historic commission meeting on the 21st of this month. If you want to, you send them a letter, Sandy, just letting them know that there's a commission meeting, and we are going to have the option of Zoom, so.
Yeah, but your voting meeting is next Monday, the 20th.
Oh, the 20th? I thought it was 27th.
Yes, no, it's the 20th.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'll confirm that with the city clerk's office, but I believe it's because it's like this immediately the week after this one. I will confirm first thing in the morning and let you all know, but I do believe that it's next Monday. And if you want a date no later than to my email, this way I can forward it to all of you on a deadline to get those letters, just let me know.
Well, it should be.
Because you have other projects that haven't submitted their letters of support either. Unless, Rick, you've gotten them through the historical commission.
No, we have not.
Which other ones are they? Or have we already, just for the record, have we
The,
already missed
the
them?
Maritime Museum
Yeah.
has not submitted theirs. The Art Association was asking, they did, I think I forwarded that to all of you. They did get their letter of support.
Okay, so
And
we
the
didn't
school
miss it.
administration, both buildings, or both projects.
Yeah, yep.
I was, the projects, if you look at the deck and the railing, that's in dire need of repair, and that's fine. But when you look at the window project, we have not seen the windows. There's still, the sample window is still on back order. I think the comment when we had our discussion was that it was maybe 20 weeks out.
Yeah.
And then the contractor's gotta be lined up, and then they gotta get in, install the window and take a look and see. So it's really out there quite a bit.
Yeah.
And to fund a project when we have not seen the windows, I mean, this is a large project, really, again, raises concerns for
Well,
me.
a lot of windows we have, when we did Lafayette House, and we've done Dr. Fisk House, they have to follow the standards set down by the state, so we don't always see the window that they're gonna get. So, I mean, I'm okay with that part, but not having all the paperwork in, that is just as important, you know? I mean, I'm sure we get the right windows because they have to follow, otherwise we don't pay for them, so they're on the hook, so, you know, but, yeah.
I have a question, just, because I'm not understanding. So, if construction starts on a they can't start construction until the project is funded,
Right.
So we're
but they
seeing-
can put in a sample window?
What they wanted to do was try and narrow down the cost. They were gonna get a sample window, but the sample window's not coming in for 20 weeks. So they were gonna have a contractor put it in and estimate how long per window it took them to put it in, so they could say how much the windows were gonna cost.
So I guess in theory, they would
Yeah.
maybe not count that sample window as part of their project, so they didn't start their project. But actually, we never clarified that, so that's an assumption.
Yeah. So, but it's 20 weeks out for the window, but,
So if they get it 20 weeks out, they put it in, and then they order the rest, it's another 20 weeks?
Probably.
who knows how long it's gonna take them to
Yeah.
get. Window restoration can be quite
Oh,
time consuming, you know?
Supplies in general are taking a
Yeah.
long time, I know that. I just wanted to,
Yeah.
so that's, putting in that sample window is not considered starting construction?
No, they just wanted to get to a basic per cost per window, like, the window came in at $300, it costs $100, so 400 times 30 windows, that's how they were looking at it, so, but,
We probably should clarify that, we probably should have clarified that that was broken out of the scope though, because I think it would technically be, if it was part of their project when they started before granting awarding, I think you would be starting the project. If they were,
well,
that
that
was
window
in
wouldn't
there
be
as-
included.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we clarified that in their numbers and everything, like if it was one of the windows
Yeah,
they're
that-
planning on repairing.
Yeah. Okay, so, on the school ad, window replacement, did anyone else have a question? Chris, any comments on that one?
We're on patio still.
Oh, patio, we're finished up,
Okay.
so,
What's that?
unless we had anything else on the patio?
No, I yield.
Okay. So on the window replacement, 260, it has to be done to historic standards. I mean, they don't have a copy of the window. We don't have a letter of support from the Historical Society. And it's quite a lot of money. This year, we don't have a lot of money, so, I mean, we've been asking for letters of support, so that's my feeling on it. Chris, do you have any comments on this?
No, it's just same as the other project. We asked for the letter. I'm not gonna really consider it until we have that, because it's not a complete application, and based on our own rules right on the application, we won't consider it for funding unless we have a complete application. So
Okay.
same thing. I mean, I think these are great projects, but if they're not giving us what we've asked for, they're not doing their due diligence as applicants, and the fact that they want money from us, I mean, it's, you know, the same, we have to hold them all to the same standards. That's all. That's my only comment. I still think it's a great project. I know the building needs it. I've toured the building. It's a beautiful building, and it definitely needs the help. So hopefully we can get that from them soon.
The only other thing I wanted to throw in, when I was driving by the building, every window has an air conditioner in it.
That wasn't addressed.
And we're gonna spend $260,000 on new windows to have air conditioners go in, out, in, out. We're gonna be back to the same problem 5 years down the road, windows torn apart, leaking. So I don't know, you know, that's a question I have too. I don't wanna replace something and then have them come back, you know? And we're not into putting split minis into the ad building, so,
So, just real quick, just to chime in with the one, so as far as the application, so you have, first-time applicants that, should read thoroughly the application, might miss something, and then you have other folks that this is not their first rodeo from what it sounds like. So, for some of these this is not the first time the school department has come before the board asking for funding. So, I mean, what we're requesting, I don't think should be something new that they're not aware of. And then to what you're saying, Mr. Chair, is that it's true. If every window has an AC unit, do we even want to fund this project? I mean,
yeah.
Taking AC unit in and out every year. I mean, at some point, down the road, you're looking at to purchase new windows. So should their focus maybe be in looking at the HVAC system that they have? I'm not sure what the issues are over there as far as HVAC, if that's the case, but that's something to consider. And with that, I yield.
Yeah, good point. I mean, maybe they should look at that first and then come back to us. Caroline?
No comments.
All right, Joanne?
Almost, I have no comment.
Alex?
No new questions.
It's an excellent point that you just made, John, and good observation. The windows that were highlighted as being the style to install are 6/6. So what do? Do you take one of the new windows and start removing a section, some of these panes of glass, and forming some, what do you do with a 6/6? It's too narrow, too small to
Yeah.
put a window air conditioner in, so what do you do here?
Yeah.
Or do you, I don't know, do you raise the window and then have to build a box to stick the AC in? Your point is very
Yeah.
well taken. All the more reason why I think it behooves us to look at the window when it's installed, and then find out what's going to be done, how are they how are they gonna transition that for AC? What are they gonna do? But we can visually see the thought of, well, we're gonna get the window and put it in, and that's what it is. Well, we're gonna follow the standards, but they're gonna modify the standards. So your point is very well taken.
Okay. Any other comments on? Okay, we'll move on to the next one. North Watuppa Pond seawall for assessment study. The only one good thing about this one, it would open up funding for federal grants to replace the firewalls. I mean, this application request has been on, I think, 2 other times, so it's been before us. It is a light funding year. I don't know how the board feels about studies, but in the past, we've kind of overlooked them, but this one where it will gather federal funding, do we want to take a harder look at it? I'll leave that up to you guys. Chris, any comments?
Nope, not at this time.
Okay, Richard?
Just real quick, the only comments I have is, I mean, I know that the water department came before us and said this was in dire need. This is almost, they declared as an emergency. If this was an emergency, the city should have taken care of this a long time ago, as far as I kind of view this. So I don't deem it as an emergency. I deem it as a study to potentially fix it down the road. But I am glad to hear that there might be some federal funding, and I would like clarification on that as to exactly from where, from what type of funding, because I know a lot of the monies that were kind of distributed federally, let's say like as opera funds, they've already been allocated for. So what federal funds are they going to receive? Because again, if they're looking to have opera funds contribute to this, it has to, for this city, it has to go in front of a board. So I'll be curious to see what that board would say if they would approve funding, and if we went ahead and the CPC funded the study. With that, I yield.
I don't remember where he said he'd be getting the funding from, but Paul Furlan and the Water Department are excellent at getting funding. I mean.
Yeah, I know. Well, board member Mr. Mancini said that he suggested that would the opera funds would be eligible to do the work, and I think that's where we left it off last time. And you can correct me, Mr. Mancini, if I'm wrong, but I think that was kind of the direction that you were going, and I agree with that motion, because again, I mean, because if not, this is just going to be another study that's going to sit on the shelf because the well's drying up. Again, I know this, I'm a public server, there's no more money, everything's been allocated for, unless the city does this. There's 2 buckets when it comes to opera, there's restricted and unrestricted. The only way they can get this done if it's unrestricted, and then depending upon how much the project is going to be, if it's going to be 200,000, 300,000, 400,000, that's, significant amount of money. Based on just the study being 82,000, this project is not going to be something very cheap, which I don't want to say that it wouldn't be funded from there, but I highly doubt it that it would be funded from opera funds. So with that, I yield.
Yeah, okay. Carolyn, anything?
No comments at this.
Alrighty. Joanne?
No, I don't have any comments at this
Okay.
time.
Alex?
I just want to say that I think it's a pretty good project. I also appreciate the alternative funding sources that they've been paying attention to, because we ask it a lot if it's been considered, and the water department has done a good job with this. I do want to say that I think we're fortunate enough to be talking about a condition assessment and not an emergency repair, because I think the costs could be probably higher if it would ever get done. Maybe they decide that granite is better at the end, at the bottom of the pond. Who knows? I think it would behoove the community to take the condition assessment and take preventative measures rather than react to it.
Okay.
Rick, I second those comments. I like the project, and I do a lot of walking up in that area, and those walls are getting bad. They're starting to deteriorate, and they can be saved. So it's a good thing to get a good assessment done, and then take the worst sections and repair them, maybe it's a gradual process. It might be a process that's gonna take another 5 years or more. But at least they'll know what's structurally not sound at this particular time, and then, you know, work it in piecemeal.
Okay.
So I agree with the project.
And I do want to add that, never mind, that's all good enough.
Okay, any other questions?
The only comment I have is I think this goes back to an earlier comment I had about trying to get a master plan, you know, in place, and I think based on what Rick said, this would be something that it would outline what might need to be done over the next few years. I mean, I deal with deferred maintenance all the time, and you know, people like to see brand new shiny stuff,
Yeah.
and well, a lot don't want to fix up what you have already, but I
know
think it's worthwhile.
in the past, when we did the Quikoshan Rail Trail, if we didn't do the study, federal funding would not have come in.
Right.
So by us doing that, we now have the Quikoshan
Can
Rail
trigger
Trail.
something else, yeah.
And our next project coming up will show how the Adirondack Farm Bioreserve.
I do want to say one. I changed my mind. And so if something did happen to the seawalls, anyone could correct me if you're wrong. I think first step would be a conditions assessment to make repairs, in which case we could see an emergency application in the future, and any condition assessment or repairs would probably ultimately fall on the taxpayer in the end, whereas this would allow the water department time to leverage additional funding.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, either water rate goes up or.
Yeah,
we
it's an
step in.
enterprise fund, so.
But on the next one, they're asking for $415,658, but on CPA, they're only asking for $141,329. They went outside source and got another almost $268,000. And they've done that a lot in the past. So just tying that into the other one, they normally come up with funding. But the one we're on now, I think this is a great project. I mean, 141 for 7 acres of farmland, and to put out the 3 houses out there for opening up to the public, for hikers. I think it's just a great opportunity to just enhance that Freetown Forest area, which we've invested quite a bit of money in already. So, Chris, any comments on the project?
Nope, I love this project, and, yeah, I mean, they really are great at finding ways to fund, their projects. I hope that other applicants will look at their projects that they've done either in the past or even currently in their applications and see what it means to look for other sources of funding, and the way that they find them is pretty impressive. So, you know, I think that this is a great project. I always have, so I guess
Richard?
that's my only comment.
Oh, sorry.
No, I agree with what Chris said. This is a great project. I mean, the water department does do a good job, you know, trying to get funding from other sources. So with that, I yield.
Okay, thanks. Caroline?
No further comment.
Okay. Joanne?
I think this is a great project, and commend them for going out and finding other sources of it, you know, other sources of money for this. So I think it's very good.
Okay. Alex?
Same thing, great project, amazing return on investment for the community of Fall River in the end.
Yeah.
Again, I second all of that, but I'm also getting involved in doing a Form B study of that whole area. And Mike Labossiere has located someone, so there'll be a lot of work being done, and I'm getting very familiar with what's going on out there. But also, the intended use of this property is going to be to enhance all of the visitors and people who come into that whole biosphere area. They're going to be able to have a headquarters where they can get the information, they can start running tours from there. So it's an excellent project, and it's going to be a tremendous asset to the city Fall River when it's implemented.
When it gets done, it's a great way to get kids into the woods, and, I mean, what do they have, a 20-mile trail now that goes the whole way over to Dartmouth and back? I mean, so many trails, so many bike trails. I mean, it's just, kids need to be open to this and have the opportunity to see what wildlife is, you know? So I think
And
it's a
thanks to
good.
the CPC, the Historic Commission put money in. It was gonna be Al Lima was going to run this project, and he subsequently passed away. But there's that money that was allocated through CPC to do a Form B.
Yeah.
There's no recorded history of most of the items and most of the areas on almost 60% of the land in Fall River.
Yeah.
So we're gonna try and do that.
Good, good. Any other questions, comments on? Okay, we'll move on to the last one. The Maritime Museum, it's a AVAC study to see what they need to put in. 91,000 for architect designs. I know this is important to preserve history and the documents down there. I'll open it up. Chris, any questions?
Just a comment similar to the others. They did not submit a letter of support from the Historical Commission. We did ask for it, and it's
Yeah.
right in the packet again, so
Yeah.
it's not a complete application if we haven't received it. And it's not that they didn't see the question, because they attached a letter from Mayflower Wind, and it's right there under the category where they wrote it, but they didn't put one from the Historical Commission, and we requested it, so, yeah, that's my only comment.
Okay. And they're not a first-time applicant either, so,
Nope, they're not.
okay. Richard?
No comment.
Okay. Caroline?
No comment.
Joanne?
I have a question. You mentioned before on another project that it wasn't anything that had come here tonight, and I just wanna get the ground rules. That on the back of a house, they hadn't asked for any funds. It wasn't, I don't know what project, because the public couldn't see it.
Well, they decided not to, right? The Dr. Fisk house, you guys aren't going for funding for the back of the house because Jim said he didn't think it was.
Generally, with all historic preservation projects, the benefit usually has to be towards the community. So street-facing facades are emphasized over, say, rear-facing facades, where no one walking a sidewalk or driving the street could look and, marvel at the historic architecture or anything like that.
So how does that play into an HVAC project?
It could play a couple different ways. It's all on a case-by-case basis. If you take, for example, the Center Fire Station project that we approved last year that John mentioned, we did the split HVAC system for. You could argue that installing those HVACs removes the air conditioners, which were damaging the historic facade because they were ruining those medallions, and you just kind of dripping on everything. For this one, I believe the argument is it preserves the history within, like the documents and the artifacts. So it's a bit of a
Humidity
different
control.
comparison.
Okay.
Hope that helps you.
I'm just trying to figure it out, that's all.
I know when we got approval to do the split minis for the Central Fire Station, Stuart said it was up to us to determine if it was historical. He goes, first, it is saving the historical windows, because you're not gonna be putting air conditioners in. So that would be protecting the building, saving the windows, and controlling for other damage doesn't happen. So like the Maritime Museum, they have the old photos, the old print, gets too humidity, they stick together, they could lose stuff. So that's why they want the study to do this. I know Rick went down there and looked at past projects we did. We don't know if the elevator works or not. It wasn't open for us.
Do you want the elevator is non-functional right now. The problem is that they have not received an inspection from the state or the elevator inspector, and they've just signed a document with another elevator firm that's going to come in, check the elevator, make sure that it's functioning and functioning correctly. And then they'll call the state inspector in to get an inspection on the elevator. But it's been funded, it's installed, it's been there for a while, but it does not function, cannot be can't be operated, you can't go in there and use the key. They're not allowed to, no inspection.
Okay.
And the electrical project, nothing's been done on the electrical project outside of building a containment area. And that's gonna be, they're moving the entire service, the electrical services in the basement, and they're gonna be moving that entire apparatus up into a room on the first floor. That's the intent.
So they got a lot of work to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is the second floor open to the public?
You can move stairways, they have, right?
In the back, they have one non-compliant stairwell that will get you up there, but there's no handicap access.
No second means of egress off the second
And
floor?
no second means of egress, no. No, none whatsoever. Just
I also
one.
don't think the second floor is technically open to the public. You can
Okay,
make
it's more
reservations to
storage or
use.
something
Well,
like
there's
that.
there's like a library part, and then there's a big kind of storage room that they hope will be something one day. But people I know use the library, and I think you have to make reservations and stuff like that. So it's technically not open to the
So you
public.
could go up
just
and
by
look at
reservation. Yeah.
documents or something like
It's a
that?
pretty historic, they've got some really historic
Yeah.
books and photos and maps and things up there in this library. And that's one of the reasons that they want to get some humidity control in there. There's
Yeah.
nothing now, so
Yeah.
they want to get the humidity and temperature.
I've seen them photos where they start sticking to the glass or something, and it's just, I mean, I can see where it's important to have. Any other comments on projects at overall or any?
I was just gonna also mention, since I mentioned for the other ones, that if we were so willing, we could tie the grantal of the award to, receiving a letter of support. And also mention that this is also an applicant with the outstanding project that
Yeah.
hasn't been complete, and Rick said it's moving, but it's hasn't
Yeah.
started yet, so.
That's, my only thing is when we're in a tight year for funding, I mean, the elevator probably does work, they don't have the permit, which is fine, but they still have a lot of electrical work to do, and nonprofit, I don't know if they're gonna be able to finish that this year. Could they wait until next year to get this done? I mean, do we really wanna pay for work and let it sit on a shelf for a year, 2 years? That's the only thing I look at. And anything else, I guess, if people are watching, and if you don't have everything in, it might sound, we're nitpicking about historical, letter from the historical commission, but, we do require it, so, if you want your projects to move ahead, please, do your best to get this information into us, to make it easy. I don't think we have anything else on, score sheet, discussion. We vote 1, 2, and 3. We take the lowest scores, and then we work our way down. So this year around, make sure your ones are, did we get down to the, I can't, were we, how many
Yeah,
number
you
ones?
could, 4 1s, 4 2s, and 3 3s. 1 is your most favorable, 3 is your least favorable.
So it's 4 1s,
4 2s, and 3 3s, because you have 11 projects.
okay.
Now, I don't know that you're going to be able to score this until last minute, because if you don't get your letters of support, obviously, they're not going to be eligible or
Right.
considered. So do you want a deadline of Thursday for them to get these letters of support in?
Yeah, I would say a deadline of Thursday is fine, yeah. I mean, pretty much, I think everybody has probably a good idea what they want to fund, but like I say, if we pull a hard line where we say you gotta have everything in, then that does knock some projects, out of, the high categories. Chris?
So I can understand the Thursday deadline and see, that's the issue. So they're gonna have to go before the historical commission, which means the historical commission is gonna have to have a special meeting because they're already meeting next week. If we need this before Monday, and the historical commission needs to give 48 hours before any public meeting so that they can have enough time to put the agenda out there. And if they're trying to do this tomorrow, I mean, they're gonna have to do this, like, figure out a date early tomorrow, and it's not gonna be before Thursday, so, I mean, I don't know how else to do this. It's not like they weren't told. They were all told at the eligibility hearing, if your project falls under historic preservation, you need to get a letter from the historical commission. They were told when we had the funding hearings, you need to get a letter from the historical commission. So at this point, they don't have those letters in, and I don't see how they're gonna get them in by Thursday, so I don't know. And I understand Commissioner Silva's thought on having the funding contingent on, that we grant it as long as they get us the letter, but even in our application, it says they won't be considered for funding without the letter. So in essence, even if we do that, we're still considering them without the letters, and we're going against our own application criteria at this point.
I don't know how the historical commission works on the letter. I mean.
Well, they have to vote, don't they?
They have to
You have to
vote.
vote?
They have to have a meeting, and
Even
they have
on
to
a
vote. They
previous
can't-
project, you would not?
They have to make a presentation, and then, very similar to what we do here, we question, and then we'll take a vote on it. And then the letter has to get written up, but again, as Kristen stated, it's 48 hours, which means it would have to get in by Tuesday afternoon at 6 PM in order to have a Thursday meeting.
Well,
Yeah, but Thursday would be past the deadline unless we
That's
set a
right.
Friday
Exactly.
You
deadline, and
can,
even then,
Yeah, it's kind of, you're at the
it's up to
wire.
you.
You're at
I
the
mean,
wire.
I think we gave notice, September 9th when we had, applications come in. It said it right there, so I mean, they've had since September to get all this paperwork in. So what are we gonna do, postpone our meeting because people didn't get their application completed?
And the meeting is next Monday. I forwarded you all the
Okay.
paperwork from the city clerk's office.
I mean, it really is not fair to all the other applicants who did their due diligence and got everything they needed, and especially, I know, like, the thought, well, it's a first-time project, We have other people that came in for first-time projects, and they have everything in that we requested of them. So, it's a matter of, these are people that are applying for large amounts of money. You're not talking about, we're gonna give somebody $20 for something. You're talking tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars. And yes, I think it's important that we hold them to the standards that we set. And if we set the standards of this is what needs to be done, then that's what needs to be done, and we need to hold them to those standards.
Okay.
And that's just my opinion, but I mean, we set those criteria for a reason.
So-
And if we're going to hold everybody, if we're gonna play fair, then everybody has to play fair the same way and follow the same rules, and we have to expect those same things. And if we're bending over backwards and extending things and doing last minute, then it really isn't fair to the people that did things the right way in the first place.
I think we've
So-
bent it over backwards already, so,
We have.
Alex?
The questions about would it be fair and how that would weigh on approving it is perfectly valid, and I think everyone can, determine that for themselves. I think that if the applicants that are trying to, or said they were pursuing the letters are actually pursuing it, it wouldn't be unreasonable for us to check the historical commission agenda on Monday or Friday, which it would be solidified by then, and see if they actually did get on the agenda with the intent of getting their letter, in which case we would, in theory, receive it a day after, which we could, like I said, make a grant award contingent on the approval, knowing that they went on, they're on the agenda for the next day. That's just an idea for, kind
Now,
of meeting it halfway, I guess.
when do you put out the agenda for it?
Ironically enough, I was speaking to Jason today, and he's gonna be putting that in Monday, I'm sorry, Friday.
Yeah, so it would give them,
So they've got,
mm,
2, 3
So,
days.
maybe they were planning on doing it at that
We could make
meeting,
our
you know?
deadline Friday. If they applied for a letter, have them let us know.
Because I don't think the people who were here at the last meeting would have, I don't think there was a historical commission since then, a historical commission meeting since then, right? I don't think so.
No.
So if they did say they were going to get it and they were intending on getting it, they still haven't had the opportunity to do that from what we.
Well, but I mean, they
But
really
I know
have.
it is, they had the opportunity to do it.
They really
entire
have had the
process.
opportunity to at least reach out and say,
Since
hey, we need a
confirming with
sweater.
us
I
at
mean,
the last meeting, I mean.
but
We
he
do
told
have-
them,
So,
they've been told twice already. They were told at
Nope,
the
and that's
eligibility
like-
hearings, they were told at the
valid.
funding hearings.
so do we want to give till Friday a deadline to make sure, well, we'll get the agenda. If they're not on the agenda, we'll say it's an incomplete project and not put it in voting.
And even if they are on the agenda, we can still vote, how
But
we,
if
how we
they
feel.
are not on the agenda, it's an incomplete project. Should we even vote on it?
No.
Okay, comments,
So I-
questions?
So I do. The Greater Fall River Art Association was asked at our meeting, and we did get a letter
Mhm.
from the Fall River Historical Commission.
Yeah.
We had a special meeting, and they were in attendance.
Okay.
And we do that when there's a storm, we'll get out there and present, to take care of these individuals. We'll make special accommodations, and that's what happened.
Okay.
I visited at the Arts, Museum, Preservation of Art, just to look at the windows and look at the and I had made mention to Dana, and that was on a Saturday morning at 9 o'clock, and at 10:30, she called Jason and had a scheduled meeting, so. I also.
Right, but again, anybody could have done that, and apparently there are still people that have not even reached out
Yeah.
to the historical
I
commission.
have something to add. It sounds like this board is just scrambling for applicant. The applicants should be scrambling to get themselves to the agenda. We shouldn't be dragging this meeting on any longer.
Right.
Right.
Because folks didn't do their due diligence. It sounds like some folks did and some folks didn't. It's not up to this board to chase anyone. If they want the funding, to the board's point, I mean, we're not talking about $5, $10, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. So please do your due diligence, so that way you can be eligible and your project will be voted for. And with that, I yield.
All right. So on Friday, when we redo the scoring applications, if they're not on the agenda, do we want to take them off the scoring? Because I don't think
Yes.
they should be on it if they don't complete an application.
Yes.
But so if they're, so say they get on the agenda because they're watching the meeting tonight and say, oh, well, now they're not gonna give us the money, so they're gonna hurry up and call Jason tomorrow to get on the agenda, which they didn't even bother to do in the first place. And what's to say you're even gonna approve the project? You know, we
That's
could
what I would
vote,
say.
agree.
it
Just
doesn't
give
mean
them
that the
an
historical
opportunity.
commission's gonna approve it.
Okay.
So we're gonna say, okay, we're gonna approve you contingent on getting a letter from the historical commission, and they don't get it, but it already knocks somebody else out of the running, so now we have to come back and vote again to add somebody else in that did their due diligence. Do you know what I mean? It's,
That's why I don't want to
I
vote for
think
somebody that doesn't have a
you're talking
complete
about
application.
hand-holding at this point.
You know, if they don't
You're
have,
talking about I'm sorry, go ahead, John.
if they don't have a complete application, I don't want us to be voting for them because that's going to take somebody away that did all the hard work.
Right.
So we shouldn't even consider
That's
them
my
for a vote.
point. We can say, okay, they're gonna be on the agenda for the historical commission at their meeting on Tuesday, but there's no guarantee the historical commission is gonna say, okay, well, we approve this project. And the fact is, we've given them time to do this and they haven't done it. So at this point, we are hand-holding. And like Richard said, we're chasing down these people when they should be the ones that are doing their own due diligence, just like all the other applicants that did things right. It's not fair. Even, and I can understand what Commissioner Silva's saying, because there are some great projects that I fully support, but they did not do their due diligence, and I don't think it's fair that we're gonna extend things past a deadline, past our voting deadline at this point.
Mr. Chairman.
The letters will not be in by
All
the
right.
time we vote.
Could Kristen put that in a motion, and we'll take a vote on it? That way it's cut and dry. We know that if there's no letter,
Okay,
then we remove them from the list.
let's,
Can I just say one thing first?
sure, go ahead.
So I personally am fully in support of, having that hard line. I just think we need to be clear from that at the beginning of the process, not a week before the end of it.
I think we have been clear, though.
I know, but if
pretty
you want
sure
to
we've
look, can I
been
just
clear.
finish? If you want to look at it, from a fair perspective, we've already had multiple letters come in late. So we let those letters come in late, and then we're not letting these letters come in late. There's no clear break of where we stopped considering it that I think could be fair to the applicant, any more so than we've already been. I'm just trying to look at it from, giving everyone the same treatment so far. This is in the middle of the process at the 11th hour, and we're coming up with the new kind of restriction. The application said it would not be considered, but then we should not have considered anything that did not have a letter, the required letters, as soon as it was submitted during all these deliberations. That would have been fair, I think. I don't really
It said it
have
it wouldn't be considered for funding. Funding is, we are voting on Monday. That's when we are considering who gets funded and who doesn't. This is still all talking, this is still all deliberation, and this is where, we've always let some letters come in a little bit late because we have not voted on the applications. This is where we're getting things in even before the vote. But my point is, on Monday, we vote. And if these letters are not in by the time we vote, then I would say, then yeah, that's your deadline. And the last time we were here, we told them those letters had to be, they needed to have those letters. We told them at the last meeting.
In
They
the past,
didn't
we've
have
always.
it.
Oh,
They
I'm
did,
sorry.
they knew when our next meeting was because we said when our next meeting was, and those letters are not here.
Yeah. In the past, we've always helped applicants if they ask us what they need to get in. But on this circumstances, we're voting. So our vote is on, everything should be in on Monday. If it's not in, I don't think they get a vote, So if somebody wants to make a motion, if all contents are not in by Friday, they won't be put on the project voting list. If anyone wants to make it.
I'll make a motion that if all of the applications that are now being considered have not given in all of the letters that we have requested, that we do not consider them as part of the voting.
And also.
I second that.
Okay. We'll do a roll call vote. I don't know if we, we all know, so why? Chris?
Kristen Cantara Oliveri, yes.
Richard?
Yes.
Caroline?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
Alex?
No.
Yes.
And Rick Mancini, yes.
It's hard for me to say yes on that, but if we're gonna stick to standards, I wanna pick and choose, but you can't do that. So, folks have just gotta get in the paperwork and, we can't be taking different sides on one project and then the other one, we're holding them, accountable for everything, so,
Okay, I need clarification for me in my role for you. Do you need me to contact all these people to say you need to go to the historical commission, you need to go to the water department? Just direct me.
Yes, you need, if you could, send a letter out to, we need Watuppa Rowing Club. They need a letter from the city. Fall River Administration, they need a historical commission sign off. Let's see who else here.
And we need those letters by Friday?
By Friday, we need a commitment.
Okay. All right. I
Why
need
don't-
those
Maritime
letters.
Museum.
There's no way they're gonna be able to get
It's
the
impossible.
letters by Friday because the historical
I-
commission would have to meet
Friday.
on Thursday or Friday.
That's out of our hand. I mean, we just took a vote, we voted on it. It's, they've had time, we've passed a motion. It's a hard decision. I mean, if they don't come in, they're not on. I mean,
So I will wait Friday at the end of the day. If I don't get anything, I will update this score sheet and email it to you all Friday night, okay? Is everybody okay with that?
Sounds good.
Okay.
any other discussion on the scoring sheet?
You know, Sandy, I would just say, can you just copy all the board members so we can all be on the same page?
Absolutely. Yep.
Whoever puts in a letter, whether it's from, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
Just copy us and then that'd be
Yep.
great. Deadline.
And whenever I get, I'll forward to all of you as I get things.
Sounds good.
Sandy, can you just make sure all those are BCC'd emails for us so they don't reply all and we get an open meeting law violation because we're all emailed on the same thread with responses coming in?
Oh, yes. Good.
Okay, so
BCC us
what do you
all.
want me to do, Alex?
BCC all the members so the people you're emailing can't reply to all, and then, because if any one of us replies to all accidentally, it would be an open meeting law violation.
So I'll just do a CC at the bottom of
BCC.
every letter and
BCC,
then
so
put all
they-
your names on it.
Yeah, BCC, not CC, they can still reply all with
BCC.
CC.
Sandy, you can just send an
BCC.
individual to make it easier, just send us.
I'll I'll send you all separate emails.
You don't
Yeah,
have a list of like 50 candidates, it's like
Yeah.
what?
yeah.
four?
I'll
Send us
send
one
you
individual
each,
email.
yeah.
You could
To make
also-
it
This,
simple.
yeah, that's not a lot. I can send you all individual emails on each one of these as I get them.
You could also just forward the responses to all of us, so you don't have to send individual
I will.
emails. It's
Yeah.
just the
I'll do
forward the
that as
chain,
well.
So we don't,
Yeah.
just to cover ourselves from
Yep,
accidents.
yep, yeah, I'll do that.
Alrighty,
No,
so we're all set on the score sheet. Any new business?
I did want to mention something possibly for the agenda to discuss next time. I don't know if anyone saw the recent Herald News article on the Bank Street Armory, the RFI that went out and the two people that came to look at it. There was a paragraph in line at the end, very end of the article that kind of caught my attention where the city's, well, not the exact attorney, Matt Thomas, I think is working with the city but not a city employee, said that the city could change the deed restriction on the Bank Street Armory, which, just for the public's record, received Community Preservation Act funds twice, so it has its historic deed restriction on the exterior article, and it said interior, but it's the exterior of the armory. So that's the protection that the residents paid for, and in the article, it suggested that that deed restriction could be altered depending on who the buyer is in their plans, and that would be acceptable from the Massachusetts Historical Commission if it would save the building. So I just think that might warrant discussion. I emailed Attorney Thomas and Attorney Rumsey. I heard back from Attorney Thomas on his thinking. I'm gonna send it, if I didn't already, to Sandy, and she could send it to everyone, and perhaps we could just talk about the deed restrictions, the preservation deed restrictions we put on properties, how we feel about them possibly being changed, since that is what we're working for, is essentially it's the deed restrictions on these things.
Okay.
Just thought I'd throw it out there in case, because it raised a red flag for me. And just, they aren't, because it's implied that they could be maybe removing it or changing it, but it's on a case-by-case basis depending on the plans, so I believe it has to be submitted for review. So it would give the community and the committee a chance to weigh into if we agreed or didn't agree with the change in the restriction that we put on.
Do you want to put that on our April regular
Ye-
meeting?
It's not necessarily time sensitive. I can, like, it's whatever we want to
All
talk
right,
about
this way
it.
we can do voting.
We should do project updates too, really
Yeah,
soon.
well, I was looking at the third week to have our meetings. I'm not sure what the day is good for you guys, but third week, look at it, send in what days are good for you, and we'll come up with a day.
Works for me.
Do you want me to put that on the next agenda to set a regular schedule?
Yeah,
Or do you want to do, okay, so the next agenda will be just voting, because I'm sure that'll take some time. And then I'll add to vote on a regular scheduled meeting date every month.
yeah, okay.
Okay, all right. And I'll send everybody, I think I sent everybody what's available and what's not available for the hearing room. But I'll send that again.
I know normally we haven't had a lot of meetings in the summertime, but sometimes I think we miss, like some training we could do,
I think
updating on projects.
even the application and the eligibility
Yeah.
form, I think we could take an extended look
And,
at some things.
Like we just ran into the problem with ADA compliance. I was gonna have the building inspector come down, maybe one meeting, just go over general, not in depth, because I mean, we're not contractors and all this, but what might come up for a project. So just different tidbits that help us coming up next season, so make our job a little easier. No further.
And it also helps the public as well.
Huh?
No, I was just saying, it also helps the public as well.
Oh, yeah.
Because then they know even further, what's expected and what kind of things they might run into as well. So I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. So can I have a motion to adjourn then?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
I second it.
All right, roll call vote. Chris?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
Caroline?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
Yes, Alex, yes.
John, yes?
Rick Mancini, yes.
Well, folks, thanks. A long meeting, good meeting, so next week.